My question is for the Premier. The return of Mildura Base Hospital to public hands was an extraordinary moment for our community, made possible by a government that was willing to listen and do what was right for the people of the Northwest, and we thank you so much. But we are not done yet. All we have is basic parity. What we want and deserve is excellence. With that in mind, can you give an indication of how your government will enhance the cardiac and cancer services that our community so desperately needs and which have been compromised over the past 20 years by a model that prioritised profits over patients?
Call the Premier.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for Mildura for her question. It's a very important question, but I thank her even more clearly for her passionate advocacy, her unrelenting advocacy on behalf of her community, not just since she's had the honour and privilege of representing Mildura in this place, but for many years before then. I don't know that I've received... I don't know... Oh, well... we're not going to talk about parties, because if we were to, I would have to reflect in a terribly political way that it was not this party, not the Labor Party, that privatised the Mildura Hospital, and then, with no reference to the Mildura community, extended those arrangements. Mr Davis in another place, extending these arrangements. Regardless of partisanship, this is not about...
Order. Ask the Premier to resume his seat and the Leader of the Nationals. Order. The Premier will resume his seat. Order. The Premier will resume his seat. I ask members to stop shouting across the chamber. Order. Premier is answering a question. The Premier to continue.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And it's not a question about politics or partisanship. It's a question about patients, hospital patients.
Point of order. The Premier resume his seat. Point of order, Leader of the Nationals.
On the point of order, Speaker, on the issue of relevance, and the member for Mildura's question was very valid on behalf of her community, the Premier was actually the Health Minister who could have fixed this when he was the Health Minister and did nothing about it. And did absolutely nothing about it. So ask you to get the Premier to actually be factual in his answer.
Order. The Minister for Mental Health is warned. I don't want people shouting across the chamber. The Premier is being relevant to the question. The Premier to continue.
Terribly inconvenient for some, but great news for Mildura. Tuesday this week, when under this government, not anyone else, this government, Mildura Hospital is now the Mildura Base Public Hospital. And the member for Mildura and all in her community who have advocated so passionately and effectively to get that outcome should be proud. But the question's very important, and despite points of order, you can't rewrite history, I'm afraid. This thing was privatised, the arrangements were extended, not by anyone on this side of the House, and those opposite can bleat all they like. I think the people of Mildura have made their views very well known in the choice they've made in putting a passionate advocate on behalf of that community into this place, and I congratulate the member for Mildura not just for what she's achieved, but what she continues to argue for. As Health Minister, I might inform those opposite, we were very pleased. I was honoured, and our government at the time was pleased to grow and expand a number of services right across regional Victoria. But we now, a different government, and I'm honoured to say, in a different role, I will confirm for the member for Mildura that I acknowledge, this government acknowledges, that we can do more and we can do better when it comes to particularly cardiac care and cancer care. Oncology outcomes in regional Victoria are nowhere near as good as they need to be. Cardiac outcomes are not as good as they need to be. There is a gap, a disparity. There is an equity issue here, and I want to make it very clear to the member for Mildura.
Or a supplementary question, the member for Mildura.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. Premier, will you commit to having this conversation directly with the new CEO and board before the end of this year?
The Premier.
Yes, I can confirm that both myself and the Minister for Health will be more than happy more than happy to engage with all the relevant parties, whether it be the board chair, the CEO, the local member who is a champion for her community. And I'm sure that I was ever invited by the local member in previous roles I've had necessarily, but this is a very, very welcome change. I will sit down and work through these issues, whether it be in terms of cancer, cardiac, and any other services that we could improve in the northwest of the state. I would, of course, note that there's a $9 million investment by this government from the Regional Health Infrastructure Fund for an 8-bed intensive care unit, an 8-bed paediatric ward. That will indeed open later on this year. There's 40% more funding in that health service today than when we came to government, and we are delighted not to have extended a private contract, but to have got rid of the private contract and delivered to the people of Mildura a public hospital for public patients.